Alright, and now we're on to step 2 of this build. I already went ahead and got everything laid out. So basically what we'll need for this step is going to be the bearings. We're going to need both pulleys for the motor drives. We're going to need both A and B housings, the screws, the printed nuts, 2 of your 6 printed spacers. We're going to need the heat set inserts, M×35 screws, and then in this kit there's multiple shims. In the voron manual it just calls for M3 shims. The ones you are going to need is the 3×6×0.5s. And that will be most of the components we'll need for this build section. And then the other thing that you will want is this little tool. It is in the printed tools guide STLs. They call it an Irish jig. So it's handy for setting basically your pulley height when you're all done here. So anyway, we'll get to the time lapse of some assembly here. Alright, basically what I did right here is got the A stuff ready, made sure I had the right ones. Basically there'll be a notch on the back side and a notch on top of this. Line up those notches. This is a good time to just go ahead and check your tolerances. Make sure that it's nice and tight all the way around there, and your block should be above the space here. The first step that we're going to do is insert the heat zerts. This one will sit pretty well flush with the top. The outside two inserts will be recessed here. So this one will sit flush, these two will sit further in. And you can kind of see the distance that has to go in if you look in there. And you'll start to feel a little bit more resistance when you put in the M3 inserts. So the manual only calls out for doing one side at a time, so it means I'm going to have the solder gun up and going. I am going to go ahead and lay both out and knock out all 8 of these heat zerts in one step. That was quick and easy. One thing to remember, when you do go to do the 2 deeper ones, put them in a good amount of ways, but don't go too far. What I like to do on recessed ones, put them in, and by then your brass is getting really hot, so you can't really judge when it's going to bottom out. So move on to a next one and then come back and recheck them again before and push down, so you can kind of start feeling resistance again. Otherwise you're going to end up with them way too deep. So just something to keep in mind, and a nice little tip. Go ahead and shut this soldering iron off and put this up. So we're going to start with the symbol in the A, and basically here, not 100% sure if it matters, but the manual shows it with the A. Basically the A on this piece here and the A on this piece here should be touching each other. So we'll go ahead and slide it in that way. And set that off to the side. And then this is going to be the bearing stack build. 6. You'll need 6 per drive. And then for the shim rings, you will also need 6 shims per drive. Now you will be building this stack upside down. So what I'm going to do is use the other stack, at least on the first one here, to kind of keep it level. And this is just going to be a placeholder bolt to kind of keep that aligned there. Just for good measure, we're going to go ahead and measure this. The total stack height should be about 18 millimeters, which I am looking right at 18 millimeters and right at 18 millimeters. So that checks out good. Now we're going to go ahead and pull our placeholder back out. This is where it's going to get tricky. Calls for some temporary nuts just to stop it from falling apart on you. It's a very good idea. Alright, and that is stack A basically complete there. Just got to add in some more nuts and bolts and 30s. Also remember into this one, guys, you are going plastic to plastic here, so you do not need to go all gung-ho with tightening these down, otherwise you're going to end up breaking your pieces and end up having to reprint stuff. These are labeled on there, B and A for your drives, so make sure you're grabbing the right one. We're working on A drive right now. On this jig, it is marked A and B, so on the A jig you just come into the side and that will go where your belt goes. So just like that, there will be a little bit of play, not a whole lot. So just get it in there close. You don't have to get it perfect right now. And is a D shaft, so make sure you are getting at least one of those onto that D part, and then just give it a quick snug, and you'll go through the final adjustment here shortly, and then you'll pull out the other one, Loctite that, lock that one in, pull the other one out, Loctite that one in. The manual does explicitly say to Loctite the grub screws in. It is a very common failure point for a grub screw to back out and cause a lot of hard to track issues. Once you get that in there and one screw kind of snug down, again, you don't have to be super tight or anything like that yet, because we may pull it back out. This is a good time to look in through here and look at where your belt drive pulley is, and then your bottom pulley stack here. And what you're going to do by that is make sure that those are lined up correctly and centered. And then we can go ahead and lock these grub screws in, making sure we don't need to do any up-down adjustments. It is a little hard to tell. One thing you can do is pull out the belt. Feed your belt in there, then pull it side to side, and then you can kind of move it back and forth and see where that belt is actually going to be centered, and make sure you are within center there on your drive. And now I am probably good because I am off of the top, but there is quite a bit of clearance on the bottom side there. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to go ahead and raise that raise that pulley just ever so slightly here. Go ahead and lightly lock one down and get the other one pulled out. Again, you should be using purple, not blue. If you are using blue, use as little as possible. That's much better. Alright, that is our A drive complete here. I'm going to go ahead and do the same exact steps for the B drive. that one looks really good without having to go through and tighten it down and pull it back out and all that good stuff. So and on the B drive, your pulley is going to be opposite, upside down from what the first one was. And then same with your bearing stack. Your spacer is going to be on the opposite side as the other one from what you originally did with the A drive. So don't just assemble them both the same way at the same time, because they are slightly different. And on your Allen wrenches, when you're tightening stuff down, never use the ball end to tighten. Always make sure you're using the solid end to tighten. It's a really good way to strip stuff out. Really handy tool to have. It's a WAVESHARE. Recommendation via a few other builders. Absolutely awesome little tool. Now these that hold the motor in, you don't need to tighten these up at all right now, because you will have to loosen them up when you go to actually adjust the belts and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. Don't crank these down or anything like that, because you will be loosening them later. Now with any 3D printed thread, when you put it on, just kind of go back and forth a little bit now and then and tightening it. That way it doesn't stick on its first go about. So, and then also don't crank these down yet. Just kind of have them a little off the plastic. There's no reason to crank them down. So that is the B drive. Double check the pulley stack there. It looks good. And now we'll go ahead and pull the printer back up. Move some stuff out of the way here. We need 4 more of these M335s. And looking at the machine, your B drive, the second one you put together, which if you did it right is going to be labeled here, will go on the left, and then your A is going to go on the right here, with the corners facing, you know, the corner of the machine. Now you should have 3 preloaded nuts on each side of this. Make sure your third one is slid forward, because you're not going to be using it right this second. And don't forget, you got your preloaded nuts that you put on here. They're not preloaded in this sense, but your temporary nuts, you'll have to pull those off. And this very first one here is actually going to go into the frame end itself and close off that extrusion. So if you forgot any preloaded nuts on the back, make sure you double check that. I'll try to show you guys a little bit better on this B drive, or this other drive I should say, the A drive. So what I did on that first one here, after I took out my extra nuts, is when you put it up here, kind of pre-align your nuts there, and you kind of look from above or from the side. That way you're fighting the preloaded nuts a lot less. Now again, remember you're going into plastic. You don't need to over tighten it. What I like to do is a crisscross pattern. So start with the center one, go to the opposite corner, go to the opposite corner, and then go to the last corner. Just make sure it's nice and snug, but not overly tight. And there we are. Our AB drives are complete and ready to go. So that is going to be it for tonight, as it's already after midnight. Going to go ahead and continue on with this part 3 to the AB idlers in the front here. But I will film that tomorrow or Monday, one of the two here. And I'll be back with you shortly after I get everything laid out for that. Alright, we're back at it again here on this thing finally. I'm going to go ahead and get the AB idlers assembled and on the machine here. And probably call that good for this video. So let's get right into it here. Got everything laid out already. Alright, a short one and a tall one with a square. Load for these. Alright, so that's pretty much done. Now you just basically need to check the level of these, make sure that you're pretty well close to the same height. The bottom of my pulley is right at 5 millimeters off the ground. Right at 5 mil off and right at 5 mil off. So at least my A side is good. Flip it around and check the B side. Right at 6 mil on each of those sides. My ruler's not quite long enough, so I did use a couple blocks to stand it up. Should be good enough for that measurement for the belt. And then it's just some clarification afterwards. So basically that is our entire drive assembly on top, the A and B drives, and then the A and B idlers here. So pretty short, sweet video on this one. It did take me a while to get it out. I did have quite a lot going on this week, so anyway, this is where we're at with this machine so far. I'll go ahead and get this one posted, and then I'm gonna move on to getting some of the Z drive installed on the next video, and then working on, looks like, the skirting and whatnot. So should be a pretty quick move getting the rest of this assembled, as most of the motion system is already done. Get the skirts on here, and then we'll start on the electronics, and probably 2 videos from now. So thanks for sticking with me, and we'll see you guys in the next video.